Welcome to day 117 on the trail. We have three readings for today from John 5, verses 19 through 47, Numbers 26, verses 1 through 65, and 1 Maccabees chapter 2, verses 1 through 14. In the second half of John chapter 5, Jesus is responding to criticism that he had received for healing a man on the Sabbath in Jerusalem. Upon seeing the man cured, some members of the Jewish community decide to focus on the day that he was healed, the Sabbath, instead of the healing itself. In the story of this man's healing, Jesus technically has done nothing that could be qualified as physical work. Instead, he simply tells the man, "Stand up, take your mat, and walk." If the man is healed by Jesus' words only, then how was the healing accomplished? If Jesus only speaks to the man, then God would have had to have acted in a powerful way for this man to stand to his feet for the first time in 38 years. Therefore, if God has healed this man, then it would appear that God is the one who violated their interpretation of the Sabbath, not Jesus. Also, if Jesus had the authority to heal this man by the power of God, then shouldn't that fact be far more significant than the day the man was healed? Therefore, as we carefully read this story, the underlying complaint is really focused on Jesus' authority. In fact, in John chapter 5, verses 17 and 18, we find this pointed out more explicitly. But Jesus answered them, "My Father is still working, and I also am working. For this reason, the Jews were seeking all the more to kill him, because he was not only breaking the Sabbath, but was also calling God his own Father, thereby making himself equal to God." Here, Jesus says that God is still working, even on the Sabbath. And since God is working, Jesus is also going to do the work of God. While the Jewish leadership may believe that this violates their view of the Sabbath, Jesus is connecting his work to God directly. We find a similar perspective from Jesus in Mark chapter 2, where the disciples were being criticized for picking heads of grain on the Sabbath. In this story, Jesus responds by saying, "The Sabbath was made for humankind, not humankind for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord, even of the Sabbath." And since Jesus is doing the work of God, who is active even on the Sabbath, then he too continues God's work by the authority of God alone. So again, the real issue here is not with the Sabbath, but with the authority of Jesus. Therefore, beginning in verse 19, Jesus talks about his authority in more detail. First, Jesus clearly states that his authority comes directly from God. Jesus said to them, "Very truly I tell you, the Son can do nothing on his own, but only what he sees the Father doing. For whatever the Father does, the Son does likewise." Jesus has a unique relationship to the Father. He is God's Son, sent to be the instrument of God's ultimate purpose and plan for humanity. So this statement from Jesus is far more than an expression of humility. Instead, Jesus is declaring his identity as God's Son, who acts with the authority of his Father and performs the same work as his Father. One of the greatest and most profound expressions of this authority is found in the following verses, beginning in John chapter 5, verse 21. "Indeed, just as the Father raises the dead and gives them life, so also the Son gives life to whomever he wishes. The Father judges no one, but has given all judgment to the Son, so that all may honor the Son just as they honor the Father. Anyone who does not honor the Son does not honor the Father who sent him. Very truly I tell you, anyone who hears my word and believes him who sent me has eternal life, and does not come under judgment, but has passed from death to life." We have already seen Jesus bring life in the face of death in the healing of the royal official's son in chapter 4. And here as well, the emphasis is not on judgment, which is indeed present, but the emphasis is on the gift of eternal life. Recall John's comment about Jesus in chapter 3. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, so that everyone who believes in him may not perish, but have eternal life. Jesus has come with the authority of the Father to complete the mission of the Father, and that is to bring life. Those who have faith in Jesus and trust that he has indeed come from God, with God's authority as his Son, are freed from judgment and death and given a new, eternal life. This is good news for all those who are willing to listen. And this new life does not exist beyond some distant horizon in the future. Jesus offers those who trust him and believe his words this new, eternal life given now. Look at verses 24 and 25. Very truly I tell you, anyone who hears my word and believes him who sent me has eternal life and does not come under judgment, but has passed from death to life. Very truly I tell you, the hour is coming and is now here, when the dead will hear the voice of the Son of God, and those who hear will live. Jesus is being very emphatic here, using very truly I tell you twice. The hour is now here in Jesus' presence. The judgment has been passed over now. Those who have faith in Jesus have already passed from death to life. Those who were spiritually dead and hear the voice of the Son of God become part of God's eternal kingdom, beginning now. Then in verse 30, Jesus restarts his explanation from the beginning. He says, I can do nothing on my own. As I hear, I judge, and my judgment is just, because I seek to do not my own will, but the will of him who sent me. Jesus is connected directly to God and only follows God's purpose and desire. The Father alone determines the judgment of the Son, and therefore his judgment is absolute. There is no higher authority. In the next passage, Jesus directly addresses those who question his claim to be God's Son and to act with the authority of God. Therefore, Jesus calls witnesses and appeals to the evidence of reason, as we might expect in a court of law. First, Jesus calls on the witness of John the Baptist. John was sent by God to prepare the way for Jesus and to point his followers, and anyone who would listen, directly to Jesus. Second, as we saw in the case of Nicodemus, the woman at the well in Samaria, the healing of the official's son, and the healing of the man at the pools of Beth Zatha, Jesus points to the evidence seen in the acts that he has done through the power and the authority of his Father. The signs and miracles that Jesus performs came from the Father's direction and power. These works and wonders reveal the Father's will to save through the Son he sent and the Son he loves. Finally, Jesus calls to the stand Moses and the writings of the Hebrew Bible, which the Pharisees have studied at length. The Torah, prophets, and the writings find their ultimate fulfillment in Jesus. The arrival and mission of Jesus represent a continuation and renewal of the Father's love for the world. Jesus is the culmination and fulfillment of God's promises. As John said in the very first chapter, and the Word became flesh and lived among us. We have seen his glory, the glory as of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. Thank you for joining us today. Until next time, stay on the trail.